Welcome to Talk Mental Health with Logan Noon. This is episode 31. Today I have on my great friend Rob Harpin, who really has an interesting story to tell. He's going to really tell us the journey of going through his battle with cancer. Thankfully, I'm happy to say he came out healthy and he's currently in remission, but it's really quite the story, and I think you guys are going to like this. So please tune in and be sure to give Rob a ton of support. Is that kombucha?
Yeah, dude, I'm obsessed.
Dude, I used to hate on all things kombucha, and now I love it. I don't know why.
It.
There's this grocery store right by my gym.
Yeah.
And they literally have kombucha on tap.
Oh, I love that.
I feel like such a hipster. I need to be like having a ponytail or something and earrings while I'm drinking it. But I'm like,
right?
My God, this is good. And it's like a probiotic. I feel like I should know more about it because I'm a
It's
med
good
student here. I'm a fucking phony. But whatever. Well, Sir Rob Harpin, welcome to Talk Mental Health with Logan Noon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
Dude, RJ Rufus Harpin, the one and only. So we got a good story today because you beat, it's non-Hodgkin's large cell lymphoma. Is that correct?
Yes. Diffuse large B cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Damn,
It's been a while.
It's well, it's probably good that you aren't able to rattle off a bunch of million facts and stats about that. It doesn't seem like it's haunting you so bad.
No, it's definitely not. It's like at this point, I kind of see it as like, something I did in my life, and shortly after, I kind of felt that way too. But it's like at this point, I almost don't even remember it happening. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think part of the reason why I managed my bipolar disorder so well is because, I had friends like you and Mark, and then another friend, Pat, who all dealt with like relatively serious medical conditions and just kind of took it on the chin and continued to live their life. And so I kind of applied that same philosophy to my bipolar disorder, where it's like, I don't pick what genes I get. I just have to live my life. And so, yeah, man, thanks again for really inspiring me to live the life that I live. You're actually, short plug here, you're getting featured in my children's book that I'm writing with my mom. Yeah.
That's awesome. Your mom, one of my favorite people ever.
My mom is also one of my favorite people ever. So, yeah, it's a children's book called We All Have Something. A little plug for the listeners, teasing them a little bit.
That's perfect. So I like to tell that to everyone because, I'll tell my story sometimes and people are like, oh my God, that's so incredible. Like, I can't believe you went through that and had to deal with that, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, we all kind of have our thing. We all have something that we have to deal with in our life. And, it could be something big like cancer that wows people, or it could be something that you don't tell anyone about that you're really dealing with. And it's really hard. Everything is relative.
Yeah. I think it's a good way to put it because I say the same thing. People are like, oh, wow, like that's so depressing. Like you thought about killing yourself and you ended up in the psych ward. And then so I think then they feel that they're not allowed to feel depressed because they didn't have those experiences. And I'm like, yeah, but to you, like you can still feel depressed and down. So I think that's a very, very good way to put it. So I guess just so the listeners kind of really know who Mr. Harpin is, you are 29?
Yes, 29.
I know, the big 3-0 is coming up on both of us. I'm terrified.
It's coming in a couple months.
I am absolutely terrified. And you currently now live in New York City, right?
Yes, so I live in New York City. I do multimedia work for a financial firm, so just photo and video work basically, and a little bit of editing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And for fun, I'm a skier. I try and stay active. I haven't played in a while, but I like to play hockey, soccer.
Yeah, collegiate soccer player after beating cancer. That'll be a fun story that we'll get to.
Yes, that was fun.
And yeah, just active kind of. I mean, I remember your nickname growing up was Gnarly Namrod.
That's right, yeah.
Just
always jumping off stuff or climbing on roofs or whatever.
Or driving like a maniac. I mean, the amount of times we almost died is I can't even count. I can't even begin to describe because we grew up. I guess so. Me and you have known each other since like third grade.
That's right. You were in my third grade class when I moved to Litchfield.
Yeah, growing up in good old Litchfield, Connecticut. Nice little scenic Litchfield. And Yeah, dude. So you kind of lived though a relatively normal life up until
Absolutely.
your experiences with cancer, right? I mean, just I guess kind of describe the listeners your high school experience, but pretty stereotypical in a sense, like popular guy, athlete, smart in school kind of thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. When I talk about cancer in terms of, like my outlook on life, people ask me like, what were you like? Did you always kind of have this outlook on life? And I did. I always was very, happy. I was active. I enjoyed high school. Um, it was a lot of fun. It was just fun growing up in a small town like that. I had a lot of good friends. And it's just a nice, like, it's a beautiful community to grow up in, and a very nurturing place. So, we all had very good lives in Litchfield. We're very lucky.
Well, and I remember one thing that when I first heard about your diagnosis of cancer, that I just thought was so strange is like, I was, we like competed against each other in soccer and stuff. We were both goalies. And I always thought that you were more of an athlete than me. You were a little better in shape, taller. I remember at the time, of course, we were in high school, but people occasionally drank and all these things. And you were always one of those people that didn't want to drink,
Yes.
and just like you weren't really interested. It just wasn't your thing. And with the exception of maybe overdosing on Mountain Dews, I viewed you
That's
as
right.
like an extremely healthy person.
Yes, absolutely.
Never overweight, like always just kind of seemed to, like you said, be active. So when
Right.
did it, I guess, like the cancer symptoms, like when did you start realizing something was going on?
Sure, sure. So I am very bad when it comes to physical health and understanding. And I've gotten a lot better at this, but like understanding what's not normal.
Mm.
So I will fight through things a lot. And so it took quite a while for me to figure out that something was really wrong with me. So I think the first sign started around maybe like going into my sophomore year, starting my sophomore year in college.
Okay.
I was tired a lot. I would take naps a lot, which I had never taken naps in my life. And it's not like I was going out and partying or anything. I wasn't drinking at the time. So there was that. And then I started getting this itching the summer after my sophomore year of college. And maybe towards the end of the college year and then going into the summer, there was just this constant itching, and there was
And
no
was it
rash
one
or
place or was it everywhere?
it was everywhere, but mostly on my legs.
Okay.
That's where it was the worst. But even like when I would clean my ears with a swab,
Mhm.
I would itch in my ears. It's like it
Yeah.
was all over my body. So I went down to Texas to do a week long job as a production assistant for a dirt bike production, and I couldn't sleep very well. I was having night sweats. Um, just was not feeling well. I had started developing this cough, and about a week after I got back from that, and I immediately moved down to Virginia
Mhm.
for an internship. I was going to be there for 2 or 3 months. And about a week or two in, the coughing was so bad that it was just this dry cough, no phlegm, no reason. And the itching was so bad that I was waking up in the middle of the night and scratching my legs so much that there were cuts on them, and they were
Mm.
reopening. It was bad. It was really bad, and I was by myself down in
Yeah.
Virginia. And I couldn't sleep. I had night
And you
sweats.
like didn't have your normal doctor, of course, just another barrier
Right,
to like kind of hold you
right.
back.
Oh, and throughout all of this, I was going to doctors about the itching. And I think I saw a doctor at one point about the cough. And so I went from having scabies to you must have bed bugs, um, all through the gamut.
Yeah.
And one doctor told me that I was psychosomatic and that I was upset about my parents being divorced, which
What? Yeah.
which never bothered me.
Yeah.
But he just couldn't figure it out. And finally, I went home from Virginia after a week or two. And I went and I saw my primary care doctor, the guy I was originally supposed to see the day that I saw the guy who told me I was psychosomatic.
Yeah.
And he listened to my lungs, and he said, "You need to go get a chest X-ray," because he could tell there was a difference in the two lungs.
Yeah.
So I went to Charlotte Hungerford in Torrington, and I got the chest X-ray, and the doctor came back to me and he said, "Are your parents here?" And so he pulled them aside and he told them what was going on, and that was the only time I was really scared,
Mm.
because no one would tell me what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I figured out what was going on, it was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
But for about a day, like maybe that night and half of the next day, I didn't really know what was going on, and that was scary.
So at first they didn't tell you your diagnosis? They told the parents?
Yes, they told my parents first, and at that time I was 19. I was
Yeah. It was
20.
right before junior year.
Yes, I was 20.
College. Yeah.
Yep. So I don't. At that point, I don't know. Medically, am I an adult at 18 or 21?
18 technically. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I was surprised by that. I remember being surprised that he was telling my parents and not me, or not all of us together.
So I guess who's the first person that told you you have cancer?
I think what they said was we found a mass, right?
Okay.
Before they said the word cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that first week or so was kind of crazy because I went and I got a bone marrow biopsy. They admitted me to the hospital, and I spent a few days in Torrington in the hospital before we figured out where we wanted to go to get treated.
Okay.
And we knew we didn't want to be treated there. And at the time, I was very lucky. And most people aren't this lucky in life, and it's really a shame, because at the time my father was working for Pfizer, and so he was able to call their top oncologist and ask him where we should go, and he said to go to Yale, which was close by. So we went down to Yale.
And so for the listeners, that's like an hour from where we grew up, more or less.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we went down to Yale, and I think that's probably where they actually figured out exactly what it was. At that point, we knew it was cancer, but we didn't know what kind and how they were going to treat it and all that stuff. And my doctor down there and my PA down there were fantastic. And, they got to work right away on me, and they admitted me right away. And I was in the hospital for a week, went through my first treatment right away.
Well, so I guess let's just kind of pause here, though. So
Sure.
What was like the mental health fucking cat yanked on my cord of my headphones. Damn co-host, terrible co-host. Sorry, hopefully you can still hear me okay. So what was the mental health experience of being told though that you have cancer? Like, was it the quintessential denial in a sense, like this can't be happening, or were you just like gung ho, I'm gonna beat this fucking thing? Like, what was running through your head?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of disbelief. Like I said, before I knew what it was terror, right? Everything's going through your head. You don't know, you're picturing every worst fear. I honestly thought I was going to die
prior to the diagnosis.
No, prior to the diagnosis, when the doctor pulled my parents aside for about a day or so, I didn't know, and I thought I was going to die. But that was the only time. After that, there was definitely a little bit of fear, but it quickly changed. Once I got down to Yale, it quickly changed into, okay, like, we know what this is. I don't remember them telling me that, like, what my chances were.
Yeah.
But I remember that, but I think, like, in spite of that, I knew, like, okay, then this is something they're very confident about. I think if they weren't confident about it, they might have been like, oh, we don't know, how long you have to live or something. So it all seemed very positive from the start.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it was just like all full speed ahead. Let's go tackle this. We're going to get through this.
I wonder, though, if that's a play of the doctors. Like, even if, for instance, you had a very bad chance, if just psychologically they wouldn't tell you, kind of thing, just to get you amped up on the treatment.
Right. And I don't know if they, at some point, maybe they have to tell you, maybe they don't. But absolutely, that would absolutely help, I think.
Yeah.
No one wants to be told, well, it's a month. You know? and I don't think they tell you that unless it really is a month.
Hmm.
And that's a pretty rare thing. So yeah, I think that played into it big time, and they were all very confident. Like they exuded confidence towards me, and the other huge part of the mental piece for me was the friends and family I had around me.
Hmm.
I had so much support from friends and family. Starting from day one, there was not a night that I was alone in the hospital.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Either my sister Megan, who lived in Litchfield at the time, or my mother was with me every night in the hospital.
Yeah.
So that was huge. I mean, the support system was incredible.
Yeah. And I remember actually you getting diagnosed was actually one of the many factors, but it definitely played a factor because that was actually when I was starting to first feel very depressed when I was in Scotland. Because I was
Right,
studying
right,
abroad at the time, and I missed home. It was mostly from missing the ex-girlfriend, but of course it had to do with the family and friends. And then I was experiencing
right,
severe anxiety and insomnia over in Scotland. But then once
right,
your diagnosis came on, it was really just like, fuck this place. Like, I want to get home. I just felt so
right,
depressed because I thought being able to go home, and see you, like, I finally really had a good reason why I felt I needed to be home. And it
right,
just made almost living over in Scotland because I didn't know how to support you.
right.
It's like, I remember we Skyped a few times
Yep,
when you
I
were in the
remember that.
hospital.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, you had that tremendous social support in the hospital, but what was it like? Did you? It was just chemo, right? I don't think you got radiation.
Right. So there was no radiation, which is great. I think I did, it was either 6 or 8 treatments of chemo in the hospital. And so what that would entail was, I think it was about 5 days in the hospital straight,
Hmm.
5 or 6 days, excuse me. And then I would take 2 weeks off, and then I'd do another 5 or 6. So it was basically week in, 2 weeks out. And then I also got intrathecal treatments, which means they give you basically a spinal tap
Hmm.
with a special chemo that breaks the brain barrier,
Yeah.
which the other chemo couldn't do. Um, so I remember that being pretty intense. Um, and then I did another like 2 or 3 treatments that were much simpler. It was like 1 or 2 days in the hospital, just kind of like cleanup treatments. Once I was already cancer free, kind of preventative, and to make sure everything that was, everything was gone. But really, those grew to be pretty standard. The hardest part was after the first treatment. The cells started breaking down so quickly, and it was so successful that I actually, one of the cells broke a hole in my intestine,
Hmm.
and I started to bleed out.
Hmm.
And so I ended up in the ICU for about a week. I left after my first treatment, was home for 1 or 2 days, and then got, back in the ICU. I was there for like a week while they tried to figure out what was wrong with me. And that was the hardest part of the whole experience.
And were
Uh,
you ever like unconscious for periods of time during that ICU experience, or?
yes, definitely. When I first got there, the pain was so bad um, that I remember, I think I described it as a 9 or a 10 on
Yeah.
the pain scale. And I like to think I'm pretty conservative when it comes to that. Like unless I'm in a lot of pain, I rate it pretty low. And it was like excruciating pain.
Yeah.
And I remember them just giving me a shot of morphine, and it was like I just instantly passed out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I was in and out for like the first 24 hours
Yeah.
of, um,
I really wonder if you had any like hallucinations at that time because you could have a lot of ammonia that's getting pumped through your gut into your blood system.
yeah,
So you very well could have. I mean, I'm sure your parents could kind of tell some wild stories.
yeah,
Now,
it
I
would not
think
surprise me.
I think we've been a little bit light in this conversation, but I think we need to remind the listeners that it was a fairly advanced lymphoma. It was like stage
Yes,
4. Yeah.
it was stage 4, correct. So, I kind of waited as long as I could to figure it out. and I was right on the brink, really.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember really kind of talking to you, trying to as much every day. And like some days you'd be in very good spirits, and other days it just, I think the word that I would best describe it as would maybe be like frustrated and bored, is just kind of how
Right.
you sounded.
Right. So it was, after the treatments, it was kind of boring. Like, like I said earlier, I was a very active person. Um, and so, just kind of having to sit around was tough for me. But really, that the toughest was that ICU part because that was the closest that I came to dying.
Yeah.
And that was the most frustrating week also. Because I remember, so they gave me an endoscopy. They couldn't find the hole. They gave
Hmm.
me a colonoscopy. They couldn't find the hole.
Oh,
Then
wow.
they had, yeah. So after each of these treatments, I go in. So I haven't eaten for, let's say, 2 days
Hmm.
before the endoscopy, and they're like, okay, you can eat after the endoscopy. So my favorite food is lobster roll. So
Yeah.
my sister goes out and she buys me a lobster roll. I get back from the endoscopy. We didn't find it. You can't eat.
Oh, God.
So so that's the first time. Then I get the colonoscopy. We didn't find it. Another lobster roll. You can't eat. So now I'm starting to get really frustrated. Um, and so basically, I'm going like 3 or 4 days without eating.
Yeah.
And I remember coming back. I think it was from the colonoscopy, and I was on so many drugs, and I was just so frustrated that I was just bawling.
Yeah.
I just couldn't hold it anymore. And I remember that night my buddy Mark, our buddy Mark,
Yeah.
came to visit me, and I think my mom called him up and was like, "Hey, he could use to pick me up," and he brought me these Hulk hands, and they were kind of like a symbol of like, just keep fighting, man. Like you're gonna
Yeah.
get through it.
I remember those photos actually vividly. You should send me that picture. We'll
Yes,
do it as the like tag or whatever for this Instagram.
yes,
Yeah, it's a vivid photo, and I think it
absolutely.
symbolizes your kind of experience. Because I remember I would just get so much hope and inspiration to seeing you kind of fighting through this
Yeah,
crazy experience. And I remember you're already a skinny guy, and you were just
yeah,
losing weight. Obviously you lost all the hair and everything. And at least as your friend, I remember one thing I was struggling with is I know you so well, but it was the first time in my life I felt struggled to like find things to talk about with you
right,
because I didn't want to get talking to you about what cancer was like and make you all feel
right,
depressed. And then
right,
I remember you'd be asking me about Scotland and traveling, and I thought if I went on too long about my traveling experience, that would make you feel depressed too because it's like here
right,
I am, traveling. Unbeknownst to you, I was extremely depressed and suicidal even for part of that time.
right,
But,
right,
I just was like, God, I don't want to compound and make this guy feel even worse about his life while he's
right.
stuck in a hospital bed right now. So I just remember it was a weird position, even as a friend, because I was like, I don't know how to support Rob. And,
Yeah, so that's a big piece of it too. When I talk about the structure I had around me, that those friends and family, I've had people say to me before that they didn't really know how to handle it themselves, and it was really tough for them. I remember going to tell our good friend Monica
mm,
about it, and she was totally broken up about it, and she was bawling. She's like, "What's going to happen?" And this is like
yeah,
the day after I found out or something like that, and I had to be like, look, it's going to be okay. I'm going to be totally fine. And that's kind of, I think, my attitude helps set the tone for everyone else.
mm,
Because like I said, I had some people talk to me about like I didn't know how to handle it, but once I saw how you were, I knew it was going to be okay.
yeah,
Um, so we all kind of came together with this strong positive energy and just started to move forward.
yeah. Yeah, and I remember one memory in particular that was really awesome. Is it was towards the end of your treatment process. I don't. Maybe it was even right after, but I remember
Right.
we finally had a chance to go skiing,
Yes. Oh,
and
yes.
you were fucking skin and bones, man. You were the
Yeah.
skinniest I've ever seen you.
I'm 6'4" and I weighed 155 pounds, I think.
And what do you weigh now?
I'm up to like 200.
Yeah, yeah. So like
Yeah.
much healthier, better weight for your body.
Yeah.
And we had a really fun time skiing. I remember, because you were just coming back from damn cancer treatment, we only lasted
Yep.
like 3 or 4 runs. But I
Yeah.
remember the whole day I just kept thinking, like, I really hope this isn't the last day I ski with Robbie. And
Yeah.
even though you
Oh,
were at the
absolutely.
end of that treatment, it was a recurring thought that I just had over and over and over, and that was my anxiety at the time that was causing me so much pain. But I
Right.
think it was that positivity that you kind of brought to the table that just kind of helped alleviate what I'm
Right.
going was experiencing. You know, even though I wasn't the one dealing with cancer by any means.
Oh, absolutely. I remember that day fondly, and I remember I remember getting down after one run and being like out of breath. I couldn't believe what a workout it was.
Yeah,
Because it always been easy for me. And
yeah,
all of a sudden, I was brought back down to like, it completely, the whole process completely destroys you, and it brings you back down to, the base, like starting at nothing, and you got
yeah,
to work
and
your
like
way back up.
appreciating, I guess, your baseline health, just like heart beating,
Absolutely. I
lungs
remember,
working.
yes, I remember thinking to myself, probably 2/3 of the way through it or something like that. I can't wait to be healthy, and I'm gonna remember this one day when I'm 100% healthy.
Mm,
And about 6 months later, I was up at school, and I'll never forget this moment. It's not a big moment or anything, but I just remember walking to my car and and taking a huge breath of air, and just being like, oh, I'm healthy. I feel 100%. This is so nice.
yeah.
And you take it, you take that for granted. People take that for granted.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Certainly, man. So I guess let's kind of change now this story into, okay, you finished finally cancer treatment, all this chemo,
Yep.
all this 9 yards. When was it exactly when they said, like, okay, you're in remission? Or, like, we're out of the woods here, at least for a long time?
Right. Yeah. So I went into remission in November. I got diagnosed in August
Mm-hmm.
2009. In November 2009, I went into remission, and I think I was deemed cancer free for January.
Okay.
So it all happened pretty quickly. And then what I went after that, I think I went maybe like every 3 months or something for the first year, just going and getting
Mm-hmm.
a scan.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, they kind of told me to just keep coming back.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years down the road, it turned into, if you've gone with what you had, if you've gone 1 year, you're pretty much good.
Okay.
So now at this point, I just saw my doctor in November, and she said, if you don't ever want to come back, you don't need to.
Okay.
So, I mean, and that's just great to hear. She's a lovely lady, and I always like seeing her because she reminds me, I get to thank her, and she reminds me of what I've been through, and how fantastic she was. But at the same time, I'm happy that I don't ever have to see her again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty cool that, geez, you're coming up on 10 years, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, it'll be 10 years in
next
August.
November. Or,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or yeah, diagnosed in August, and then sometime around December it'd be 10 years free.
So did you ever think that your health, though, when you were in that bottom state of mind, you just fighting, you just imagine like you felt like the biggest piece of shit during that treatment process. Did you
Yeah,
ever think, though, that your health wasn't ever going to come back? Did you ever, or like be like, I'm going to come back, but it's always going to be stunted in some capacity?
sure. Um, you know, I think I was in such a survival mode that I didn't even consider that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my whole attitude was just, okay, we're gonna, just be positive and surge ahead, was kind of survival mode. I was physically in such bad shape that I was just, even though I was being poked and prodded, I was feeling better.
Mm.
I was so far down that anything they were doing to me hurt less than I was hurting before.
Yeah.
And then it was just that survival mode, like get through. And I didn't even think about, what the other side would look like.
Yeah.
It was just get to the other side.
Okay. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I just had to get there first. It didn't even cross my mind. And a lot of questions like that didn't cross my mind. It was just straight survival.
Yeah. So then once you got through, though, the treatment phase,
Mm-hmm.
what then kind of changed in your life and your mentality of like, what led you to start living differently, and how did you live
Sure.
differently?
Sure. So, it's kind of that's kind of where a lot of the mental health changes for me. I think a lot of there was the fear in the beginning. A lot of it was positivity and survival after. And then once I was cancer free, I kind of went back to normal life to start, right? And I went back to college, and that's a fun, easy time in your life. Um, and then once I got out of college, that's when it started to get a little bit harder. So let me frame it this way: my the way I lived my life in high school and growing up was always, make the most of life, experience as much as you can. Um, I just always wanted to have fun and be doing something active, and I had a great group of friends, and I enjoyed high school a lot, like I said, and we'd go
Hmm.
skiing and all this stuff. So I was always very positive and happy and all that. Um, and so coming out of cancer, it kind of reaffirmed that belief in my life.
Hmm.
Um, and we're kind of from a generation, and my father treated us this way: like you can do anything you want, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you're gonna love your job, and you're gonna love what you do every day. And so for me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do some really awesome thing. I'm gonna be a professional skier. I'm gonna be a skydiver, or drive rally cars or something like that, right? Because I'm like, I almost died. I want to live it up.
Yeah.
I want to do these awesome things every day of my life, because I've been to the brink and back. And so the hardest mental thing for me, and it took me a while to figure it out, the hardest thing was figuring out that I have to live a normal life just like everyone else.
Mm.
Like I almost thought I had this license to have this abnormal life just because I almost died.
It's
Um,
funny. It's funny you say that because I remember it was soon after you beat cancer, you bought a motorcycle,
yes, that's right.
and I remember giving you shit because I was like, Rob, I'm like, you just survived this. You're gonna go fucking die on that
Mm-hmm.
motorcycle. But you said something I remember very vivid. You were
Right.
like, listen, like my body just tried to kill myself. At least I know if I kill myself on that bicycle, I'll be doing something with a smile on my face. So that one always kind of. Did you hear that? Our internet kind of cut out. It always kind
Yes.
of like stuck with
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
like kind of the life you were trying to live. You're like, listen, like I'm at least gonna make my own choices now, and it just kind of was very inspiring for me. Like at least you're trying to really make the best of the life that you have lived, and you kind of made a
Right.
transition into you're like, you know what? I will have that beer with you now, Logan. Like,
Right.
let's go.
Right, exactly. And so, I already had that view that like you should live life to the fullest and all this stuff, but it reaffirmed it for me, like you could die any day,
Hmm.
right? And why not have fun with your life? Like I just someone my sister works with, her husband just had a heart attack on the couch the other day, and then out of nowhere, they had no clue that he had heart problems or anything like that. And you just, it's terrible to think about, but you just never know. And I'm not saying, you should be going out there and doing insane things every day, but you want to drive a motorcycle and that's all you've ever wanted to do in your life, why deny that to yourself? And I can see, like, if you have kids or something like that where you're a support, you have people who you support, okay, that's fine, then you have responsibilities.
Hmm.
But at that time in my life, right now in my life, I don't have anyone that I have to take care of. If I want to ride a motorcycle because that's how I enjoy life, I think I say go for it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what life is all about. It's all about living. And I think beating cancer really reaffirmed that for me.
Yeah. Well, and then also, I mean, I think uh, I thought you were equally as good as goalie and field player in soccer. I thought I was a good soccer player. I always really loved that. But coming from such a small high school like us, I thought that I never was good enough for college. And I never thought really anyone else who I played with was good enough for
Yeah,
college.
I,
So
I felt the same.
so how did you get that confidence though post cancer diagnosis, post beating cancer? You're like, you know what?
Sure.
Screw it. I want to try out for this college soccer team. I think I'm good enough.
Yeah, yeah. So I went back to school junior year, and I was frail, and you're just trying to, get back to a healthy, normal size. And my friend Justin at school was taking me to the gym and got me into lifting a little bit. And we played all the intramurals at school, and so I was getting back into that. And we were playing indoor soccer that year, and it was in the spring, and a couple of the guys from the soccer team played on the intramural teams. And so one of them came up to me, and I was playing goalie, and he said, "Hey man, you should try out for the team." And that just blew my mind, because this is D2 soccer, and a lot of these kids are from, all over the world. They're from Colombia, Brazil, England, like all over the world, and they're incredible soccer players. So that just blew my mind. And then I kind of saw it as a way for me to get back to a healthy state and push myself and challenge myself. So I spent the summer getting ready for the soccer team, and I went to I remember I went to a goalie camp the week before my the preseason was kind of my tryout.
Okay.
So the week before the preseason, I went to a goalie camp, and it was a bunch of high school kids.
Was it that same goalie camp that we went to?
It was a different one, but it was the same idea, right? You go to a private school, you stay in the dorms, and the kids are actually, I think they might have started in like 4th grade or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm out there with these kids, and I'm no better than them.
Yeah.
At day one, and by the end of the week, I was good enough to make the soccer team, D2 at Franklin Pierce.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I had to go there, and I had to put in my time and really grind it out. And I never played or anything like that, but just making that team and getting to challenge myself every day. And I knew when I was on the team, I knew I was the best I could be.
Yeah.
Which was a very good high level, but these players were just that much better. And it was so cool getting to play with them and getting to challenge myself like that. It was so much fun. It's just a great experience. Just being on a team like that, and just wonderful people, and challenging myself and overcoming that obstacle.
Yeah, I mean, and it got you back. I really look at it kind of got you into like fitness, and maybe that your friend Justin kind of helped you too, because like I said, when we were growing up, you were always so skinny, but now you're like a built dude. Like you said, 200 something pounds, really put a lot of muscle on your body. And, I think setting crazy fitness goals like that, or just achievement goals, is just, it really is so beneficial for mental health. Like for me, I'm overweight. I weigh like 232 right now.
Yeah.
And so my goal is I want to be 200 pounds by the time I turn 30 in April.
Right.
So that's kind of my goal, but like there's nothing really sexy about, hopefully I'll look sexy at the end of it, but like just the numbers of it is kind of boring. So my goal, and I make jokes with all my medical school classmates, is I want to dunk a damn basketball.
I love that.
I've never dunked a ball. I think it's a far-fetched idea. I'm only 6 foot. But I think if I drop weight, and I think if I just keep working really hard, one day I can make it happen. And that kind of crazy goal is helping me. It just helps me get to the gym, because it's a different motivation than I'm trying to lose 5 pounds. Like it's something more fun.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're dead on when it comes to working out, going hand in hand with good mental health. For example, probably the best state of mind I'd been in since I was in New York was when I was working out about 3 or 4 days a week for maybe 6 months. And I was just in such a good mental state. And right now, I have a stress fracture, and I'm so bummed that I can't work out. I don't have that routine in my life. It's like, I feel like you're continually working on yourself when you're working out. And that's such a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. Dude, you just got to change what you're doing for working out, man. It's your back, right?
I've been going to physical therapy, and the back's feeling much better.
Wait,
and
so where's the stress fracture?
I think I'm going to, when I get back to it, I'll do less weights and, more cardio and that sort of thing.
So what bone has a stress fracture?
I honestly don't know which bone it is. It's one of the lower vertebrae. And basically it just tightens up all the muscles in that area. So my back is always kind of tight and sore and uncomfortable.
Well, dude, I mean, it just sounds like you need to be a yogi. Start stretching, doing it right, get all those
I
muscles.
think I lost you for a second.
Oh, could you? Oh, God, the internet. See what happens here. It's 4 o'clock over in Western, excuse me, Yakima time. So the internet is fine all the
Yeah,
time in my apartment complex, and then people come home from work, and from hours like 5 to 8, everyone's watching
right.
Netflix or porn or whatever, and
Yeah.
the internet just dies. And so I think we're coming up on 42 minutes here, so maybe let's try to wrap this thing up. Okay, so the final question I wanted to ask you is, imagine that someone was listening to your story on this podcast that is going through something similar. It doesn't have to be cancer, it could just be
Right.
some big life changing diagnosis, whether it's you're going to die in a year or like diabetes, you're going to have this till the day you die.
Right.
What advice would you want to give them just to hold their shit together mentally?
Right. Well, I would say, first off, from day one, don't panic. There's no need for panicking. It's kind of like any part of your life, like, right? Like there's no point in getting angry about stuff, right? If that's anger is not going to help anything. There's no point in panicking because panicking is going to help anything. So that's step one.
Mm-hmm.
Step two, find out what you really have to beat, right? What is your opponent, what's in front of you, and then you can wrap your head around it. And then after that, you just have to be positive. I mean, I kind of looked at all the people in more unfortunate circumstances than me. I considered myself lucky to have had what I had, two, to have been lucky enough to go to Yale to be treated for it. Like there's all these things in your life that you can either decide to be devastated about, discouraged about, or you can choose to, realize why you're actually lucky for some of these reasons, So, like I said, everyone has their problem. And you just kind of got to fight it. You got to fight the good fight and move forward and find happiness in life as much as you can. And sometimes these problems that you might face will give you perspective.
Yeah.
And the most important thing is just to choose happiness, choose to fight. And yeah, I guess that's kind of where I was. And
Well, I always do the analogy of like bodybuilding. Life is like bodybuilding,
right.
in a sense. Like adversity isn't a bad thing.
Right.
What you went through, the same way as like when you go to the gym and try to rip those muscle fibers, like they grow back stronger. And because you went through that adversity, you have like a different perspective, like you said, and just like
absolutely
a more healthy, like you're gonna probably deal with another health thing at some point in your life, or maybe your loved one, or losing a parent, or whatever it may be. But
absolutely,
it gives you the confidence to kind of handle that. And then one thing I think is really the best piece of advice that you hit on earlier at the beginning when we were talking about, it's like we all have something wrong with us.
Yes.
It's just a matter of time once that thing kind of comes up.
Right.
And one thing that really kind of hit home to me, wasn't necessarily on this podcast, but in first year of medical school you do anatomy, so you literally cut open cadavers completely, from head to toe, every single little part. And every single person, we could go through those cadavers and find things that were arteries and veins that were connected funny. We could find little masses that are, you could call them precancerous, but more like benign tumors. Like we all have shit that's wrong a little bit. Like we always would joke in our anatomy class, like, okay, here's the textbook, but remember your cadaver in front of you is going to have some weird different stuff. So like we're all wired not perfectly the way we're supposed to. And so I think just having that attitude, we're all not going to be 100% perfect. It's impossible to be 100% perfect. So just, appreciate the ways that your body works properly and handle the ways that your body doesn't work properly.
Absolutely. You're dead on. And, that can be mentally, that can be physically. It could be, in the way you walk. It could be in the way you run. I mean, we're all different. For good reasons, and we all have our problems and we all have our joys.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. This is dope. You have earned yourself a free copy of We All Have Something. You'll like
Oh,
the
I love that. Thank
you'll
you.
like the character Danielle. Sorry, we made you into a black female to kind of diversify the crowd that we can
Yeah.
access here. But it's dope, man. My
Yeah,
mom is
well,
making these
you
cool
know,
little.
that's my inner being.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Actually, you might be the one. My mom's making the illustrations right now, and we need
Oh,
to
that's
get
so
them
cool.
scanned or take pictures to get them to me so I can do like the digital component and get the text and all that stuff. So you actually might have a good excuse to go visit my mom, Madre, and you're a lot closer to Litchfield, Connecticut. I'm sure she'll, make you some Rice Krispie treats and whatever else you like.
I will always love that.